Right then, so it's Friday the 4th of November. I've picked a typically noisy section of road to start recording this video on, and I'm on my way to my second collection caper of the year. Now, this isn't a car for myself, it's actually a car for a family member, and it's just over an hour away on foot, so I'm going to walk it rather stupidly, rather than, I don't know, getting a bus or a taxi or whatnot. So anyway, I'm going to keep going. It's at least a nice day, it's not chucking it down with rain, which for November 2022, believe me, makes a change. And the next update will probably be when I start all around the car. Right, so I think it's time to have a better look around my £500 Vauxhall Corsa C purchase. So it is the day after, well, it's the 5th of November today, and it's lovely and grey and miserable, as you can see. But as is the tradition when I do these videos on these cars, I like to show you how they are when I very first get them, and then obviously I'll tidy and clean this up as I go along. There probably won't be a driving video of it for a little bit, because one of the things I found out on the way back was that this rear brake is sticking on quite well. I think it's quite a common problem on Corsa Cs, and as soon as you use the handbrake, that wheel just seems to stick on a fair bit, which is not ideal. And there's also something else I'm going to show you which is not ideal on this car as well, and I cocked up a little bit when looking at it, and it's to do with the timing chain. So I listened to this when it was relatively cold, and it sounded as sweet as a nut, didn't sound like there were any issues with it at all. I then drove it for about 25 minutes, and by the time I got it home, the chain was much louder. In fact, what I'll do, rather than starting it up again now, because I've already had a second listen to it today, I'll play a clip of what it sounds like when it's cold. And now a clip of what it sounds like when it's warm. So as you can see, that's really not an ideal noise, but you know, at the end of the day, this is a car that was £500, so you're not going to get mechanical perfection. What I'm going to do with this, it's actually booked in at a local garage to me that I trust on Tuesday next week to get that binding rear brake looked at, and I'm going to get his opinion on the vehicle as a whole before I decide what to do about the timing chain. If it was purely for me as a stopgap car, I would probably just change the oil, do an engine flush and take my chances, but as I've bought this for a family member, I think I need to be a little bit more mindful of what might happen if it snaps on her. So because of that, I am going to get a timing chain priced up, and I think for me, buying a £500 car, I'm probably going to set myself a budget of around £500 again for whatever it needs, because let's be honest with you, I could have bought a car for 3 or 4 times more than this and still had to throw 500 quid at tyres or brakes or whatever else. So just because it's a low upfront purchase price, it doesn't mean that it's not worthy of having the right kind of maintenance done. And certainly the previous owner of this, who is a work colleague of mine, has really looked after it. There's a sort of a wedge of paperwork, very thick, and he's had a lot of the common Corsa C issues sorted out, including things like the water pump, the leak through the brake booster, you know, various suspension components. It's had wishbones, it's had track rod ends. He has really looked after it, so it would be a shame at this stage not to do everything possible to keep it sort of decent and going. Anyway, I'm waffling, so I'll start on a look round on the outside. So it's a 1.4 SXI, so that's the largest engine before you start getting into the sort of SRI territory. I think it's about 90 brake horsepower, and it does feel quite nippy. I think it would feel even more nippy if that rear brake wasn't binding, so I'm hoping once it's sorted it'll feel a lot better. I mean, to give you an idea how bad the binding is at the moment I can park it on that hill and it won't roll backwards, which is not great. So, but like I say, just looking around the outside of it, it's got alloy wheels. They're all pretty much in the sort of state you'd expect. I've got a no-name tyre there. I've got the little cover for that indicator, which I might try and glue back on, or just see if I can get another one. I mean, this is the other thing I realised looking on Amazon and stuff like that, that the number of parts you can get for this car are absolutely insane. And they're not expensive either, and the Corsa C forums still seems to be very, very active as well, which is great. There's a little bit of rust bubbling up behind that cover there, and again we've got drum brakes on the rear, and these are Nexans on the back. They're not too bad, but I think they are starting to show a little bit of sign of perishing. It's the dot code on these tyres. This is a nerdy thing I always do when I look at cars. So let's have a look when the tyres were made. So they were made in the 18th week of 2016. Like I say, that's the one that's getting quite hot. I'm not too worried about that. I think it might have been resprayed there at some point. In fact, I think it has been resprayed there at some point. So I might see if I can get a little bit of Actan or whatever on there just to sort of slow that rust down. But again, £500 car. I'm not going to go too berserk over it. Let's just unlock everything. I've got the other standard Corsa problem of knackered buttons on the remote key. I've got another key that isn't a remote key, but they both seem to work all right. There we go. That should have unlocked all the doors, so it is central locking. Take a quick look inside, and like I say, fairly standard Corsa sort of interior. These SXI seats are quite supportive actually. They're a pleasant surprise, and I think they will clean up quite nicely. I think it's got the metal bar problem coming through there. I don't know what that is actually. That's always reassuring when you find a random bit of trim in a car. There is a bit of damage to the carpet because the previous owner had a problem with water ingress, and he lifted the carpet or cut the carpet to try and get some of the water out. That was caused by a leak behind the brake booster, but he has actually had that sorted. Bit of wear on the steering wheel again, which I'll sort out. And my dash cam seems to have made a bid for freedom for some reason today. An aftermarket stereo with Bluetooth. That's quite a nice little unit actually. But like I say, nice sporty white dials, and generally I think all this will just respond to a bit of a clean up quite nicely. The seats aren't too bad. I think the rear seats are maybe a little bit muckier, but they're really not too bad at all things considered. And like I say, I think what I might do for it, I think a really cheap set of fitted floor mats is only about 20 quid. So I might just get a cheap set of fitted floor mats, just because I don't like the idea of this sort of sliding around inside. But like I say, I don't think it's too bad at all really, all things considered. I'll look in the boot, see if I've actually remembered to open this in the right mode. We've got a parcel shelf, which again suddenly seems to have made a bid for freedom. Oh, that's broken there. Oh well. I'll have to see if I can do something about that at some point. I wonder if I can fix that. Oh, it's the dowel that's gone in there. Okay. So, and the other thing I noticed is I seem to be missing a load of trim clips back here for this bit of carpeting. But again, I'm sure I can find some of those. I just bought a big trim kit for the Volvo, but I'm pretty certain that they're probably generic. So I'll see if I can sort them out and put them back in place. And then underneath here we've got a reasonably okay looking spare wheel. That's a 14-inch, so it is a space saver. It's not full size, but again, there's no evidence of accident damage in the boot. Everything seems to be sort of all right and all in order there. Also, I never noticed that parcel shelf dangling a little bit, but then again, perhaps unusually for a Corsa, it has actually got a fully intact parcel shelf. Or maybe that's just me thinking back to my youth when we used to put big 6x9s in the back. But like I say, all looks fine otherwise. Sort of on that side of things. Desperately needs a new rear wiper blade, so that's on my list of things to sort out. And like I say, I mean, down the sides there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not the usual sort of massive array of dents or anything like that. I think this will polish up quite nicely. The roof does look a little bit flat, which makes me wonder whether I've got the beginnings of lacquer problems going on, but I haven't had the chance to really evaluate it, and I'm unlikely to do a full wash on it today because A, it's cold, and B, I think it's going to absolutely chuck it down. The other external thing that I did miss was the crack in the windscreen, which is a bit of a shame. I think that'll be a case of just getting that sorted out through the usual means. Headlights aren't too bad. I know that the previous owners sort of polished them a few times. I think that one's slightly more cloudy, but they're perfectly legal as they are. You can see where he's actually polished them. I might give them another quick going over to try and sort them out. The number plate's a bit weird. It keeps passing an MOT like this, but I'm very surprised it does, because it's clearly faded. I might have a word with a mate of mine, see if I can get a new number plate sorted out for it as well. But like I say, I mean, all the wheels have got the kind of little scuffs and marks on it, consummate to the age. Like, I've got one premium tyre, which is a Pirelli P1. And then, was it on the back? I think it's another Nexon. Yeah, it's another Nexon. N Blue Plus on the back. They're not bad tyres actually, as budget tyres go. Nexons or Uniroyals, well, I say budget tyres. I think Nexon now is more a mid-range brand, but they're not bad, honestly, for what they are. Another look this side. Get everything opened up. So nice big doors, obviously. I put some fuel in it yesterday, and 50 quid nearly filled it, which, believe me, in this current market's remarkable. It just shows sort of how small the fuel tank is. Gear knob's a bit gnarly as well. Again, this is one of those silly things where, because it's not for me, it's for my sister, I might just see if I can get another replacement gear knob, and maybe even a replacement sort of handbrake lever, just to make it a little bit nicer inside for her. They're not expensive items, and it just might make her feel a little bit happier about it. Good sized glove box, which doesn't appear to be broken, which is nice. There's a screw in the bottom of there. I probably heard that rattling at some point. That's the other thing about this. It has got a fair few squeaks and rattles going about, but it's not too bad. Like I say, mostly it just needs a damn good clean. Damn good clean and a polish, I think, and it will probably respond quite well. It's got fog lights. I've done a triangle of doom test, which it failed. Not only has it got a triangle of doom, we had a cascade of disappointment. It's probably the best way that I can describe it. But yeah, overall, sort of inside, it's not too bad. Oh, I just heard it roll back a little bit then. I might put that in gear. I backed the handbrake off in an effort to see if I could sort out the binding, but it doesn't seem to have made much difference. I think all I've done is make the handbrake less efficient now on the other wheel. Like I say, I'll take it out of gear. I'll just give it a quick start so you can hear the horror of the chain rattle. Very funky radio, look. Yeah, you can hear that's quite noisy. It does sound quite diesely, unfortunately. The Raymond Ray trick of putting the window down so it doesn't wind up like I say, this is a hot engine because I've taken it out for a drive earlier, and you can hear it's noisy, it's very noisy. Other things that I've picked up on, I think there might be a leak out the oil pressure sensor. There's definitely a leak around the rocker cover, which I'll try and sort out. But other than that, other than that binding rear brake and the timing chain, I've not noticed anything else wrong with it. It drives quite well. It's pretty nippy. Like I say, it's just a shame about that timing chain. And it didn't sound bad when I very first looked at it. So I think that's just one of those things of perhaps not quite doing enough research. I think the previous owner of this had just driven it around and just assumed that this is just how these sound. So I don't think he was aware basically that that's going to go. He thought a Dacia Sandero, a Dacia Sandero. That's because I spent too much time listening to the unofficial Good News pronunciation version of that. But yeah, like I say, that's a little bit of a shame, but knock it off because I don't want to run it too long with it sounding like that, to be perfectly honest with you. Start it again. Yeah, I mean, it only really rattles at idle. Certainly not too terrible sort of under load, but like I say, there's definitely a rattle there at idle, so I think it's going to need to be, let's take that key out, get rid of that beeping noise, because you know, modern cars, they have to beep, don't they? I say modern cars, I mean this is a 2015, this is a 2005, so can't currently do the mental arithmetic of how old it is, but I'll put that on screen now. But like I say, they have to beep and bong and do various things, don't they? So yeah, like I say, I mean, he's had a new water pump on it, wishbones were done, track rods have been done, and then he's had the leak behind the brake booster sorted out as well. So he's spent a fair bit on it. I think there's a newish battery as well. Like I say, other than a few oil leaks and that timing chain, it seems to be pretty sound in terms of an engine. There's no oil and coolant issues going on, it all looks fine, and I think there is. I know some people asked me whether or not there was enough oil getting up to the top of the engine. I think there actually is, looking at that. It does look like it's flowing. Yeah, there's plenty of oil coating those cams, so I don't think there's an oil flow problem. I think it is just the chain, which from what I've read is quite common on these. So like I say, it's a shame, but again, I mean, what do you think? A £500 car with a £500 budget to put right? Now I should say that's a £500 budget at a garage. I could potentially try and do the timing chain myself, but I'm on a bit of a time scale, and I think this is the other dilemma I've got, because if I bought this for myself purely as a winter hack or as a project, what I'd probably do right now is turn it around, roll it straight inside my garage and take everything to bits and just do it myself. Ideally, I've got to try and get this turned around in the next 2 weeks, or at the very most within the next month. So I haven't got as much time as I would like, you know, to start stripping all this down and then go, oh, I need to buy tool X or tool Y. So I think, unfortunately, at least for the timing chain, I am going to have to leave that to a garage to get sorted out. But yeah, like I say, what do you think? I don't think it's too bad at all, really. I've not really looked. It's tricky to look at the suspension springs and stuff, but they all seem to be okay. I'll say it's had a recent-ish MOT. And it certainly drives absolutely fine. Not felt anything. I think looking at the history, I think he's had pretty much all of the springs over time done on it as well. Yeah, those rear springs look alright. That rear cross member's nice and rusty. Even the exhaust doesn't look too bad, really. I don't think. Like there's a cat or something been rubbing against it, which is a bit strange, but yeah. I mean, I don't think it's too bad at all, and like I say, when you consider how scabrous many cars of this age are already becoming, everything seems to be, at least where I can see it, which is always the problem with plastic mouldings, reasonably solid. There is one piece of rust I do know about, other than that rear bit there, which is there is a bit bubbling up through this sill here, So again, that for me probably puts a lifetime on the car, because the chances are if it's bubbling up through there long term, I mean, I can't, it does seem to be surface, so it seems to be this side rather than coming up from underneath, because I can't push through it, so it is still solid there. So again, I might just sand those bits back maybe and put a bit of rust treatment on them and then see how we do. But like I say, I mean, I think for the money, for 500 quid in the current market, I don't know, have I done good, have I done bad? I know it needs a timing chain. I'm gutted it needs a timing chain, but I don't know, how do you think I've done? Like I say, my videos at the moment, I'm going to get in because it's cold. I'll sit in the car for a minute. There we go. I'm sure that's just rolled back a bit more. I'll put it in gear because I don't want it going anywhere. Like I say, my videos at the moment are going to be a little bit out of sequence because I've got loads of videos on the XC60 which I've not yet edited. I've got even more videos on the V70 which I've not yet edited. And I'm doing a generally rubbish job. See if I can find some way to put you, there we go, put you on the steering wheel. I'm doing a generally rubbish job at the moment of trying to stay on top of those workflows. What I'm hopeful is that over the winter that will get better, simply because I won't be going out to anywhere near as many car shows and things that I've been doing. The list of car shows that I've got unedited videos for is huge at the moment, so I'd like to try and get that sorted out as well. Speaking of sorting out, just clip this bloody dash cam back in. Oh. Bear with me, viewers. There we go, sorted. So, anyway, what do you think for 500 quid? Have I done good? Have I done bad? Let me know in the comments below, as they say. Next video for this will be, depending on the weather, I'm going to try and do an initial clean on it. Again, I'm not going to go berserk on it. It's not going to be a super duper mega detail. I'm just going to try and get it looking reasonable, and then we'll go from there. And then I'll let everybody know what the outcome is of the mechanical inspection as well, and we'll find out whether or not, before I start pouring a huge amount of cash into this, whether I've been wise or whether I've cocked up. So anyway, I've rambled along far enough now. Thank you very much for watching. Please do consider subscribing before you go, and I'll see you in a future one, either with this or probably more likely with something Swedish. Cheerio! Ooh, snazzy. Radio 1? Don't want that noise. Unexpected item in the bagging area. Right then, so I think it's time to have a better look around my start again. Because there's a bus going by, like there always bloody is when I start a video, and then 12,000 other rounds of traffic, even though I've not frigging had anything go past for the last 5 minutes. Was that camping off?